My name is Carina Gardner, and I'm what you would call a practical designer. If you're ready to create a life that you love, become an incredible force for good, and generate income while pursuing your dreams, this is the podcast for you. Welcome to Make and Design. Recently, I was looking on YouTube and Instagram, and I saw several things that I would like to call untruths. I mean, maybe these are blatant lies, but what I really think is going on is that it's a type of amnesia that kind of happens in the marketing, business, and design worlds. Let me tell you what I mean by this. So many of us who have been moms before have something that happens called pregnancy amnesia. And what that is basically is you have a pregnancy and you have the labor. And then a few months later, after you've had the baby, you forget how hard the labor was or how hard the pregnancy was. And so you decide you're going to have another baby. Now, I think this clearly is to perpetuate the species because several of us have more than one kid, right? So we forget how hard, we have this pregnancy amnesia, and we forget how hard it is to, birth a child, okay? I think I did for sure. I for sure did. That's why I have 3 of them. So I just think what happens is that I don't know that necessarily all the things that I'm seeing out there are trying to lie to you, but I kind of call them untruths because there's a mix of hidden information also with just forgetting what it was like to be at the very beginning. And so I just thought we could talk about this a little bit before I kind of dug in even more to a game called WereWolf. So we're gonna head there, okay? So here are some of the untruths that I have seen recently or I've heard. One of them was you don't have to work hard to start a business. The second one is you just have to do a little bit of design every day. Number 3 was your idea could be a business. Now, all 3 of these things are kind of a little bit true, but also not 100% true, right? You don't have to work hard to start a business. Well, if you're someone who has started multiple businesses, maybe when you start your next business, it won't be as hard, right? Because you have the money, the resources, everything you need to get going. You also have the education behind you. But I can tell you the first business I started, it was rough and I did have to work hard and I got a lot of things wrong. And that was almost 17 years ago, maybe even a little bit longer than it was longer than that. The very first business was much longer than that. And it was rough. And even the business that ended up being very successful 16 and a half years ago, my design business, I will say it was hard work. I worked hard every day and I had little kids and I was still trying to figure it out and I was having to do research and I was trying to understand marketing and I was trying to understand how to make money. It was hard work. So this whole idea that you don't have to work hard to start a business, I'm like, what business are you talking about? Because I have owned a lot of businesses. I've owned and I continue to own businesses that are multi-million. And I remember how hard it was just to make my first $5,000. So I get really confused when I see this because you must know something I don't, which is probably what they're trying to, do, make you feel like you need to have their information. But furthermore, I think that it's people who actually have forgotten what it was like to be at the very, very beginning. The second one, you just have to do a little bit of design every day. I think it's like this thing to make you feel like if you just do a tiny bit every day that you're going to be just fine. Now, I am not discounting that you shouldn't be designing every day. I actually think that's a really good rule of thumb. But the whole idea that you just have to do a little bit every day and you're going to win, anyone who's taken any of my workshops knows that that's just really not the case, because design isn't the only thing we have to know in order to make money. And that's one of the things I learned very quickly in my first year of being a designer. I was in design education. I taught at the University of Minnesota. And the thing that we taught there was just design, right? The thing that I see most people teaching on the internet is just design. Design is really important. Art is very important. And you have to understand those foundational skills to be a great designer. But what I see is that people just say you have to design a little bit every day. And you're like, the implication is then you'll figure it out. You'll make some money. And that's just really not the case. And doing a little bit every day means that you're going slower than just about everybody else out there. So it's a little bit of a pipe dream that you're going to make it as a designer by simply designing a little bit every day. I know that. I think those of you who have listened to me know that, but it doesn't mean that we don't still want to believe the lie, that we want to be like, this is fine. I just need to do a little bit and I'm going to make it. Because it just doesn't really work that way, you guys. You know this, right? We all know this. It's like the signs you see up on the, I always see anyway, like there's like it's like on white poster paper and it's in metal, stakes in the ground. It says make $10,000 a month doing hardly anything or whatever. And actually there's a really funny, oh gosh, what's his name? Is it David Gilbert? I can't even remember his name. He's a YouTuber. If you want to go look it up, my daughters made me watch it one time. And I think the title of the video, make $20,000 doing nothing every month. And basically he goes down this rabbit hole. He's like, I make $20,000 a month doing nothing, but like changing some numbers on a spreadsheet. And then he goes on this search trying to find whoever it is that's paying him $20,000 a month, basically doing nothing. And he just signs some paperwork and he can't find it. Like it's not a real place. Anyway, it's kind of funny, takes you down a nice little rabbit hole, but it's the truth. Like $20,000 doesn't come from nothing, right? There is something there, right? And we all know that. And yet we sometimes want to believe the lie that I just have to do a very little bit. I don't have to work very hard. And this money is just immediately going to come to me. Okay. That's what we call get quick rich schemes. They don't work. Okay. All right. The last one, your idea could be a business. The answer is yes. Anyone's idea could be a business. The thing is that most ideas aren't good, valuable businesses, right? And so having someone weed through your ideas to figure out if it really could be a business is a really valuable thing. So this whole idea of like, you have it in you, you have this idea that is absolutely a business is sometimes nonsensical. Sometimes I've said this directly in some of my design boot camps and the Start Your Own Journey workshop, and that is people say things like, I have this idea and I want to do this product, XXX, okay? And they say the product. I know that product is really difficult. I know it's a very difficult, not viable product, right? And very often I will say that in those workshops. I'll be like, oh, it's not a great product. Other times I'm kind of like, you know what? It's clearly the thing they want to do. I can tell they are not shaken by it. They're going to do it no matter what I say. So I just let it go. But like the thing is that people don't realize that there are products out there that are difficult to get into, and there are products that just aren't going to work. And this is me speaking very candidly about it, because I don't want you to believe every little thing that you hear out there, that it's all going to be rainbow and sunshine. One of the things we always tell our designers is we do have a method. That method takes 3 years, sometimes longer, to really get there. And we say that because that's how long it took me. I did not make a ton of money my first year. Anybody who's been to one of my workshops knows that. It is really hard to get going. And so when we get education and we get that information behind everything, then we're able to kind of bypass some of those things. But at the end of the day, it's still just hard work, right? And sometimes that deters people. I like to talk about it because I think it deters the right people, the people who don't want to work hard, who don't believe in their dreams. I think the people who really believe in what they're doing, what they want to do, they're not afraid of that work hard piece. They're not afraid that it's going to take a little bit of time. They're not afraid to spend money on education to get themselves there. I think that is, I think that's enough said about that. Okay. Which takes me into this little game that we play in our family called WereWolf. Maybe you've heard of it before. Maybe even your family plays it. It is very similar to another game called Mafia that we used to play when we were kids. WereWolf was invented by a student of sociology in Russia to prove his thesis. Okay, and we'll talk about that thesis in a second. But I just think it's really fascinating, and it really leads me to why I believe that there is one thing above all else that really makes a difference in especially design businesses, but I honestly believe in most businesses in general, okay? So if you've never played the game WereWolf, let me just set it up for you, okay? There's usually a narrator or someone who conducts the entire game. WereWolf has cards, and every person gets a card, okay? So depending on how big your group is, usually there's 2 werewolves. There's some other things, but most everybody is a villager, right? So 2 werewolves, they get to kill someone, off someone during the game. So the person who's in charge will say, "Everybody close your eyes." Werewolves open your eyes. Everybody else keeps their eyes closed. The werewolf decide who they're going to kill, and they just point to that person, and then they close their eyes, and then everybody opens their eyes again, and the narrator says, "Okay, so and so is dead." Okay, so that person's dead, so they can't even talk. They can't do anything. Okay, but everybody else gets to have a conversation, and in that conversation, they get to decide who they think the werewolves will be, and often everybody gets it wrong. Okay, because the werewolves are manipulating the situation. Everybody else doesn't know who to believe. And so often they'll say, "We're going to kill so-and-so." And that person turns out to be a villager. Okay. Now, depending on how good your players are, and especially if you play with little kids, it can be a number of different people who win. But most often, especially when you're playing with a group who has played before, very, very often, the werewolves win very, very often. Okay. And this game was invented, and here was the thesis for it. An uninformed majority will always lose the battle with a smaller informed minority. Let me say that again. Okay. An uninformed majority will always lose a battle with a smaller informed minority. Now, I think that I said that and you probably believed it, because we see instances of this all over, right? We see this in the health industry. We see this in politics and in government. We see this, corporations, because if they know something that's going on, then they're going to use that to their advantage, right? The same is true in just about every other field, okay? In any field. And that is those that are informed, who know what's going on, they have more information, and that hidden information gives them the upper hand. And I can say this pretty confidently because I've been in design now for, 20-something plus years, both in the education realm, and once again, you guys, now that I own a university, coming into that realm, and then also in the business space. And the information I've gathered over the last several years of being in design is really important. It helps me make informed decisions about where I'm going to put my designs, the kind of designs I'm going to put out, and all of that. Which leads me to tell you that those of you who've taken my one of my classes where I talk about my signature framework, there's one piece in there that I talk about last that I have, over the years, I have just decided must be the most important piece. And we call it, in Design Suite, we call it the inside scoop. I just think the more I dig into it, it is more important than any other aspect that I teach. The inside scoop, knowing the things that the people who have already been in the game know, allows you to bypass everything else. Okay? So when I was talking to CEOs of companies, when I was a creative director, the information I had, especially like at that time I was in the scrapbooking industry, the information that I had on what was selling, how well it was selling, right? Like I could see numbers, where it was selling. It was often the information that people would die to have, right? Because when you're starting something new, if you don't have that information, you have no idea who's the best people you should be distributing through. You have no idea what kind of money you can make, but it's by the experience of actually playing the game that we get the inside scoop and the education from other people on that inside scoop. And the reason I am telling you this is because I keep seeing all of these untruths on social media. And what I want you to know is that you're playing a game of werewolf, whether you know it or not. And you're a villager. You are uninformed about everything that's going on in the industry. Even I am uninformed about everything that's going on in the industry. I remember the first mastermind I joined, which was about 3.5 years ago. And I got into that room. It was all women business owners. And I got into that room and I paid a lot to get into that room because I was like, you know what? I think I just don't know what I don't know. And man, did I not know what I did not know. The stuff that even in the first, I would say 6 weeks, that the information that I got in there, which was, I didn't know a single thing about funnels. I didn't know a single thing about teaching the way that I needed to teach. I had no idea. I mean, it was just like, my mind was blown. And what I realize is most of us just don't know what we don't know. Even now, I will tell you, as we started this university, we're in our first cohort. I have to fly to conferences because I have to learn all of these things that in working with agencies and stuff. There were so many things I had no idea. And the only way to know is to play the game. And so what I'm going to challenge you right now is to play the game. Get as much education as you can so you can be part of the minority and do everything you can to play the game so that you can understand the rules you're playing by. Because most of us don't even know the rules that we're playing with. And that is really important. That is very, very important. Okay. You can do this. I think it's a really fascinating thing that I've recently just kind of realized in my own experience over the last 17 years or so, of what it really takes in order to make it. And it's, yes, skills, right? Those are the things we teach. Skills, how to use the software, how to actually make products. But then it's like all of this, like, I don't want to say like hazy information that is not given out freely, anywhere, which is there are things that you only learn because you're part of a group, you're part of a network, you are being informed by other designers in the industry, other CEOs, because you're part of a program where they freely give that information. It's just a very, very fascinating thing. And I would say if you're part of any kind of group, like those of you in Design Suite, you should be constantly taking advantage of that. Recently, we just gave some information to Design Suite. They all get the Design Your Life podcast, which is our paid podcast, because I definitely give the inside scoop there. But I talked about a recent conference I went to and, the thing that I had available just to Design Suite members. And I think that's a really powerful thing. Like when you realize like groups can help you get to where you really want to go. So anyway, just a really fascinating conversation I've been having with a number of other CEOs recently and also marketers, and how there's kind of these interesting untruths that exist out there. And, also I think on my end, I feel like, I spend a lot of time telling people it's going to take time and it's going to take effort and you're going to have to work hard. And the first 100,000 is really, really hard. And sometimes people won't get there and you have to work on your portfolio. I say all these things, and I am sure it deters people from taking my program or doing, the work that needs to be done as a designer. But I would much rather tell the truth about how hard it is, or what kind of effort you need to put in and that you can definitely do it than tell an untruth about it. And so it's just a really interesting game that we're kind of all a part of as we kind of figure out how best to navigate this crazy, crazy business world. Anyway, if you like this and you want to come join me for one of my new recent workshops, I've been just starting to do these called Start Your Design Journey. You can see if I have one on the calendar or coming up. You can just go to designsuitecourses.com/journey. This is a new workshop. It's basically a design suite intensive all in a single day. So we've been doing it in a way so that it's faster. It happens only in a single day. It is 3 hours long. So it's like you're like really in it and doing it versus a whole week. And I started doing these things because I realized that people's time was tight and it was just easier for me to sit down and give you all the information I could in a single setting. So if you want to come join me for one of those, I would love it. If you've been to a design boot camp before, you may have already had most of this information, so you don't need to come. But if you want a revitalization or some more motivation, it does have some new twists on it. So anyway, I hope I get to see you at one of those soon. I hope that you're doing well, that you're designing every day, maybe not just a little bit, but a lot, and learning all the business and marketing things you need to start your design business.
Did you know you have access to more free design content, die cut files, and sewing patterns? Join our exclusive VIP group for free by going to designsuitecourses.com/free.